Yo, welcome back. This is your girl Dragon, and it's time to jump into part 2 of how to create a 1v1 or 2v2 game with a voting system. If you enjoy tutorials like this, be sure to subscribe. That way you don't miss a thing. In addition to that, if you have not caught part 1, I do highly recommend you see that part before you dive into this one. The links will be posted below. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Let's go! Next is the Score Manager Epic, and let's check it out. For functions, we're going to activate when receiving from, switch epic on turned on, and then reset when receiving from, channel round game resetter on receive transmit. For events, on score output, we're going to send an event to switch epic to turn it off. Alright, and there is your vote mechanic. Lastly, to complete, we need the timer, so let's check that out. We have the timer device vote timer, and this is set to a duration of 20 seconds. It can be however long you want it to be, so keep that in mind. We're going to start when receiving from, teleporter weapon selection on teleported, and channel round game resetter on receive transmit. We're going to complete when receiving from, item granter mythic on item granted, item granter legendary on item granted, item granter epic on item granted. For events, on success, we're going to send an event to timer device choose team 3 to start, and timer device choose 3 to enable. As we're going along, you can see that some of the events are already binded. So as long as your devices are named the same as you see here in the tutorial, you're going to be good to go. So let's go ahead and move over to team settings. So you should have two team settings here for 1 and 2. And let's first check out team settings and inventory, team 1. As you see, a lot of don't overrides, and there are no events, and there are no functions either. Now for team 2. Also, this is a great way to set your team colors as well, so be sure to have fun with it. And make sure you set both of these to a default class identifier of 2. And then of course the rest is a lot of don't overrides, and it's quite the same. So just as I stated here, make sure it is set to default class of 2. And there you go. no functions, and no events. Next, let's move on to the class selectors. So we have class selectors TM1 or Team 1, and the class to switch to will be 2. The team to switch to would be 1, and so forth. As for functions, we're going to enable when receiving from channel round game resetter on receive transmit, teleporter weapon selection on teleported, button restart on interact. We're going to disable when receiving from timer device choose team on success, class selector TM1 or team 1 on team switched, and so forth. For events, we're going to set it so on team switched, we're going to send an event to class selector team 1 disable, player reference team 1 register player, and class selector global resetter disable. Right above it is the player reference team 1, so let's take a look at that. For functions, we're going to register player when receiving from class selector team 1 on team switch, and clear player when receiving from timer device round start timer on success, channel round game resetter on receive transmit, player spawner PGM1 on player spawned, and so forth. And there are no events. Again, having a player reference device is optional, and this is so when a player selects a team, they'll show who is on that team. Right now I'll just have one, since I'll only have another player in here testing this out with me. However, if you're going to have two, the mechanics might be slightly different. You'll need to have two player reference devices, or you can just have them clear and update upon every entry. So I'll have to cover that in a separate tutorial, but for now, when you do this setup, it's only going to show the first player who comes through. Okay, let's move on to team 2. So class selector team 2, we have class to switch to is 2, and team to switch to is 2. For functions, we're going to enable when receiving from teleporter weapon selection on teleported, channel round game resetter on receive transmit, and button restart on interact. We're going to disable when receiving from timer device choose team 3 on success, class selector team 2 on team switched, which means when they switch this team, this device will disable itself. For events on team switch, we're going to send an event to class selector team 2 to disable, class selector global resetter to disable, and player reference team 2 to register player. For player reference team 2, these are the settings, and they are very similar with the exception that it coincides with the class selector team 2. We're going to register player when receiving from class selector team 2 on team switched for functions, and then we're going to clear player when receiving from timer device round start timer on success, channel round game resetter on receive transmit, player spawner PGM1 on player spawn, and so forth. And there are no events. For the timer, and this is named timer device, choose team 3. The duration is 20 seconds, and you can see the rest right here. Again, feel free to pause anytime you need to. For functions, We're going to start when receiving from timer device, vote timer on success, and reset when receiving from channel round game resetter on receive transmit. We're going to enable this device when receiving from timer device, vote timer on success. On success, we're going to send an event to switch mythic, disable, class selector team 1 disable, class selector team 2 disable, timer device round start, timer start, timer device round start, timer enable. So that basically means when this timer is complete, it's going to start the round start timer, which is right here. Timer device, round start timer. This is set to a duration of 10 seconds and so forth. For functions, we're going to start when receiving from timer device, choose team 3 on success, and reset when receiving from channel round game resetter on receive transmit. We're going to enable when receiving from timer device, choose team 3 on success. On success, we're going to send an event to switch legendary to disable, mutator zone device, game start, enable, switch epic, disable, player reference team 1, clear player, player reference team 2, clear player, mutator zone device, game spectator, enable, and so forth. Alright, so for further explanation, when this timer goes off, it's going to enable the spectator mutator zone to send that spectator to their box. In addition to that, it's also going to enable the mutator zone that's going to send the players who want to play to the active game area. It's also set to clear the player reference devices as well. Now you should have all your devices set up for the game respawn area. Now let's check out the spectator box. First, let's start with the teleporter spectator. For functions, we're going to teleport when receiving from mutator zone device, game spectator, on player entering zone. For events, we're going to set an event on teleported to send an event to item remover spectator, remove, class selector spectator, change player to team and class, and HUD message device spectator, show. Once you bind these, it should already connect to these devices. But I'll go ahead and open them up to show you the settings. We have item remover spectator. For functions, remove when receiving from teleporter spectator on teleported. And there you go. Keep in mind, like I stated before, I didn't add the weapons here, but in your game you want to make sure you add all weapons, epics, legendaries, as well as mythics here, so that it can remove the items if a player spawns here with weapons. If you want them to keep weapons, be sure to remove this. Just make sure your mutator zone is set to disallow weapon fire. Alright, the HUD message device. And this is HUD message device spectator. Set your message to anything you like. I have it set to you are spectator, and it's only going to be showing to the triggering player, and it's set for a time duration of 5 seconds. For functions, we're going to show when receiving from teleporter spectator on teleported. And that's it. Now the go back button. So button, go back. And it's very similar to the other button. However, for events, on interact, we're going to send an event to teleporter, spectator, game, restart to teleport. Next is the barrier. So again, you can use a hollow barrier with teleporters. Just know that you cannot use a hollow barrier with player spawner pads. Alright, and then the mutator zone. So this is mutator zone device, game, spectator, box. And these are the settings for that. And make sure allow building is off. And let's turn allow map maker marker off as well. For functions, we're going to disable when receiving from teleporter weapon selection on teleported, and enable when receiving from button restart on interact. For events, we're going to send an event on player entering zone to send an event to teleporter spectator, game restart to teleport. Alright, class selector, spectator. The class to switch to will be 4, and the team to switch to will be 4. For functions, we're going to change player to team and class, and receiving from teleporter spectator on teleported. And that's it. Last is the active game area. Let's go ahead and dive in. Let's first start with teleporter game team 1 or TM1. For functions, we're going to teleport when receiving from mutator zone game start on player entering zone. For events, on teleported, send an event to mutator zone device game start disable, and then player checkpoint pad game over to register. And before we move over to team 2, I just want to note that this teleporter game team 1 is also set to a selected team of 1. Then here we go, teleporter game TM2 or team 2. You'll see that it's also set to a selected team of team 2. For functions, we're going to teleport when receiving from mutator zone device game start on player entering zone. And events, on teleporter, send event to player checkpoint pad game over to register the player. Alright, we have a timer here and the timer device count checker. Let's check it out. It's set for a duration of 10 seconds. And this timer is going to restart itself every 10 seconds. for functions, you'll see that there are no functions. However, for events on success, we're going to send an event to the player counter to compare the players to the target. Now, every 10 seconds, it resets itself and restarts. Therefore, every 10 seconds, it's going to compare the players to target. Now let's look at the player counter. We have compare player count fewer than with a target player count of 2. Compare at game start, no, but we will compare on count change. We're going to transmit on player counted or removed every time. Transmit for on compare result change for all, and the counted team will be any. For functions, we're going to compare players to target when receiving from player counter on player removed, as well as timer device count checker on success. So we have basically a fail safe here just so it can continue to check against the target. For events on count succeeds, we're going to send an event to teleporter game over _ restart to teleport. And on player removed, we're going to send an event to player counter to compare players to target. Just a quick note in regards to the player counter, since we have it set to a zone, it's very important that the zone does not bleed over to your spectator box. So make sure you size it accordingly and appropriately. Okay, right? Intricate, right? Definitely a massive amount of settings there, but it's time to run a playtest. So let's check it out. Let's do it. Alright, that timer's about to go out and teleport players to the voting area. Alright, we got vote for mythics, and we're not able to press any other button. Now it's time to select teams. And there we go. Round starting in 5, 3, 2, and 1. Let's go. All right, players on the other side and ready to go. And all right when I eliminate, and since it's fewer than 2, I'm gonna teleport. Player is back in, and there's no timer or anything, so you can see we can choose to just like chat or whatever we want to do, or restart the game. All right, and when we restart, everything is back on and ready to go. Let's go with epic weapons this time, right? And I'm going to choose the team, but other player is going to be AFK. Alright, round will be starting in 3, 2, 1. And I didn't do a build reset here, but if you do want to see that tutorial, you can. It's going to teleport me back right away. And the other player is in the spectator area. And the player can press the go back button, and they can come right back here. Now we can vote for a weapon again. And this time I'll be AFK. I am now spectator, and I can see Team 2 down there alone. Team 2 is teleported because there's less than 2 players. And then I can press go back. This can continue on as long as players want to play, and so forth. And if AFK comes back, they can simply just select a team and we'll be back in the game. I would suggest at every time the player is teleported back to the game lobby to reset the builds. So that would be a good link for that. And if you want to see that tutorial, it will be linked down below. So be sure to check it out. Alright, and there you go. Lastly, I want to show you that every time the player presses the restart button, everyone switch back to global. And that allows for players to reselect their teams without an issue. And there you go, you're done. Yo, that's it, you guys. Now you know how to create your very own 1v1 or 2v2 game mode with a voting system. Be sure to take this information and build upon it. I can't wait to see what you guys do. In addition, please check out my games. You can do so by finding them in Discovery and clicking on Creator Profile, or clicking the link below. Be sure to check it out. If you do, you are awesome. Alright, you guys, that's going to do it for this tutorial, and I'm going to see you on the next one. Alright, bye!